Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
At Easton Roofing, you will find out that no payment is collected until you're 100% satisfied, both commercial and residential jobs. Joe just sent me a thing, showed me like what he got sent from one of his suppliers, one of his materials suppliers, and that on June 15th, another rate hike is coming in. This has already got a rate hike. They give him notice in advance. He said this is the third or fourth one already from this one supplier that's coming in. So without a doubt, the cheapest time to get your roof done right now. I'm talking about a re-roof, new roof, roofing repairs, gutters, attic insulation. It's going to be right now. And nobody will do a better job than Joe and the guys at Easton Roofing. They were on my roof. They've been on Danny's roof. They're absolutely the best. I really did think we had big-time problems here, and I was ready for it. And it would have been real easy to tell me, yeah, you know what, I'm sorry. We're going to have to redo that. They did it wrong. And they said, no, one problem right here. Here's where it is. Show me pictures of everything, what it was going to take, when they do it. Couldn't have been in better hands than the guys at Easton Roofing, working the entire metro, including Lawrence and Topeka. Easton Roofing handles both commercial and residential. More than 1,000 jobs performed last year. Call Joe and his great team, 913-257-5426. My kids are big fans. I saw Joe at the soccer fields this past weekend. I was pulling in behind him. It's tough to miss that great big old Easton truck that he drives around, and he was putting along, and my daughter said, go ahead and text him. Go ahead, why don't you text him? I said, well, first of all, we're driving, so I'm not going to drive and text. And second of all, we'll just yell at him when he stops. I think he's going to the same field. So had a nice little chat with Joe over at the soccer fields. So always good to see him. Great family guy, great family-owned and operated business, Easton Roofing. Call him today at 913-257-5426. Find him online at eastonroofing.com. Danny Clinkscale, how are you, my friend?
I am doing just great, Soren. Joe loves that coaching, I'll tell you that. He is a big fan of coaching the kids.
Well, I'm very happy that my daughter's team was not playing his team, because we played his team a year or two ago, and it was not pretty. And we got a good coach and a good little team. My buddy Yoni coaches our team, and he pushed them up to a higher grade last year, and it's really paid dividends this year. The girls' skill level really went up doing that. We had so many kids. He didn't do it necessarily as like a ploy to get better. He did it because the higher level, more kids played, so he wanted to give the girls more time on the pitch, Danny.
Yes.
And it worked really well. But we played Joe's team and last year, I think it was, and or maybe it was the year before. It was the year before last, and I was like, no, pass. We'll take someone else. So I was very happy we were not playing his squad. So. But,
and his son is starting to play
coach.
His son is starting to play football, and one of his coaches is Jeff Jadea.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We were talking about that on Saturday. In fact, I'm going to be talking to Jeff here. I'm trying to get together with him here before long, and we were talking about that. He goes, "Yeah, I'm looking at I'm like, this has to be the same guy, right? There can't be two Chadeas out there."
Right.
Yeah, Chadea's his son's football coach. Small world, man.
Absolutely.
Small world.
Absolutely.
All right, what do you think? Orlando Brown as a Kansas City Chief. Love it. Okay with it. Wait and see. It sucks. Where do you sit, Danny?
I'm generally positive about it. I think that usually in my world, when you can get an actual football player instead of an amorphous, I don't know who the football player is, and you're not giving up the farm, which they're not, they'll get a motivated player who didn't want to return to playing right tackle after he played this year because of an injury to the highly paid left tackle. The only thing I can think of that is a potential negative to this trade is that the Ravens made it.
Yeah, right?
I mean, it's not that they traded Orlando Brown. He wanted to be traded, and I think they were open to trading him. It's that they traded him to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
At a position,
if you're willing to do that, you don't think he's really that good because you wouldn't give the team you're gunning for, you wouldn't fill a need for them.
Right. Or you'd only do it if you got a king's ransom as far as your return is concerned, and they didn't.
Breaking news, Orlando Brown is retired. I'm just kidding.
He just opted out for the 21
Yeah.
season.
I agree with you. That is concerning. There are certain teams, it's like trading with Curtis in fantasy sports. You're like, he's such a shark. If he's going to do this deal, I probably shouldn't do it. But no, listen, I think that is a concern, because I think Baltimore's a sharp franchise.
Yes.
But here's where so let me walk that back and give you a reason why I will soften that concern. And it's that they had a player that's a malcontent. And one thing that I believe wholeheartedly in is if you have a player who says he wants out, I don't care why he wants out. Blank it, right? Blank it, not put a blanket on it. Blank it. You can figure out what word I'm talking about. He's out. That's it. It's done. The Steelers jerking around with Le'Veon Bell, bad move, right? The Texans jerking around with Deshaun Watson, bad move. I'm a little surprised that Baltimore didn't play this right up to the draft, but it makes me think, and this is a reason for concern, maybe the Chiefs were the only real suitor for the guy, which makes, tackles are hard to come by. So, but I can also see if people like these tackles that are in this draft, or at least if the teams that need tackles have a pick that's high enough that they feel like, hey, we're going to get one of these guys. I won't be shocked if now that Orlando Brown's off the board, if we don't see somebody move up real quick and then they end up taking a tackle. They move up and they're moving up from 18 to 9, right? I think what this means is Penny Sewell and Rashawn Slater are going to go quick. And if, Ferguson, the Virginia Tech guy, I think he's the next one. I think he's going to go high. I think we're going to see those tackles go high. And I think, if what you had were, okay, there are 6 teams that need a tackle that are in picks 1 through 20. And then there were 2 teams that desperately needed a tackle in picks 21 to 32. And, the Chiefs were the only one offering a serious offer in the 21 to 32. And 1 to 20 all thought, well, we can get one of those 3 guys, either with our pick or we can make a move. We've got the firepower to move up and get one of those guys. Then I could see why this deal came together early. But I am a little concerned that the Ravens didn't play it to the very end, that there weren't, theoretically more teams competing for him. I am also concerned that it's only a mid-second round value, although Eric Eager made me feel better and worse. He thought the value difference was the number 28 pick in the draft, so a late first. It is kind of like giving up 31. So, you feel a little better, then a little worse, then a little better, then a little worse. But I do think, the Ravens, I think, are smart enough to know if the guy wants out, we got to get him out. There's no point. Take the best thing you can get for him and move on with the guys who want to be here. And so from that standpoint, I think they're smart. And if that's the case, then the Chiefs knew they had a team that had to move him, and they gave him a fair offer, and now both teams move forward. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and most of the things I'm reading here indicate that part of the reason that was maybe a quote-unquote lukewarm market for him was because of the fact that he wants big money in a year. He's in a contract year. He wants to play left tackle, obviously, and he's going to want left tackle money. He just watched his counterpart get the 3rd biggest contract for an offensive tackle on his own team. Obviously, the Ravens didn't want to have 2 incredibly high-paid tackles. And I'm just bringing the thing up, is that this looks like it was the best that the Ravens could do, and they said, screw it, we know what we're doing. And
yeah.
But I think if they thought he was some kind of an absolute world beater, that they might have been a little reticent to do it.
Yeah, but I think I'll come back to it. If they don't think he's a world beater because they're going to move him back to right tackle.
Right.
So, and that is a knock, okay? But I also think one of the guys I talked to told me, listen, elite. And now Eric didn't agree with the elite pass blocker, but this guy said elite pass blocker, not a lot of range in the run game. Well, I mean, if you look at what they do in Baltimore, they like to grind out the run. And so even though at 6'7" and 7/8 and 350 pounds, you would think this is the best run blocking tackle, he's actually a better pass protector. And I think they're committed to what they're doing. I really think the Ravens, and I remember we're going to talk to Glenn Clark. We'll go to Baltimore and get the Baltimore side of this during the 2-minute drill in our next hour. I said to Glenn Clark in Lamar Jackson's rookie year, we were talking the Chiefs are getting ready to play him, that first game that they played, Lamar Jackson versus Mahomes, and he's like, okay, you've covered what the Chiefs have done at quarterback there. What do you think of what we're doing, the Ravens are doing at quarterback here? And I said, well, I think that the plan is to run him and let him take the hits. And I just watched a bunch of the Michael Vick 30 for 30, and they talked about how beat up he got running around and how it, and he talked about the hits kind of sucking the ability out of him. I said, if the plan is we've got 5 years of this guy and let's play option football, let's run him all over the place. And if he develops into this incredible passer, great. We'll back off the running and we'll throw the ball. Meanwhile, looking with second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh round picks for another quarterback. We'll go with this guy for 5 years when he's cheap, and we'll try to maximize our talent around him, and we think we can win a Super Bowl that way. That's what I would do with him, because I don't see a guy who's going to be an elite passer. And if Fatty Talk Show host, let's say I'm right, if I can figure that out, Baltimore can figure that out. So if they're looking at this and going, okay, we got a malcontent, and he doesn't want to go play the side we want him to play, then let's get rid of him, because we're going to run Lamar Jackson into the ground, and we want to ground and pound, because we're the changeup to everybody else's fastball in the league, and we want to do that, then that also explains him being more expendable. And if you buy that he's an elite pass protector, that fits more of what the Chiefs want to do.
Right, and the Chiefs don't seem to have any problem with taking on players who seem like they are going to want big money, because they've paid big money to one guy after another. Now, sooner or later, that's got to end, but and I think you couched it well with Adam Teicher and the fact that if he is a one-year rental and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, then so what? Maybe you see him at left tackle and he's just okay, but he didn't give up a sack this year when he played left tackle. He gave up his sacks as a right tackle early in the year. So I think that I can't, this just the most everybody likes the deal, so I'm just trying to think of anything that is a counterweight to it, and there's not much. I think it completely fills the biggest need that you have, and you didn't give away a ransom as a price for it. And we've seen teams really make some deals that hurt this offseason because they wanted what they wanted, and the Chiefs didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do like the deal, but I'm okay with people shooting holes in it. I thought that's why I wanted to have Eric on. I thought it was great to have a nice job by Jed, by the way, to go get Teicher and Eager. We gave you a guy who likes it, two guys that I really respect that like it, and a guy who's not. Eric, I think, was kind of coming around to it. I'm going to tell you, what was his text to me when it first went down, right as we're getting ready to go on the show. And he saw it before I did, because I was like, what are you talking about? He says, gee, damn it. that was at 2:01.
Well, when he answers the phone, when I get him on the phone, hey, Eric, how are you doing, buddy? I hate it. Thanks.
And listen, I would, I always picture myself as okay, I'm the GM, and then the Teicher and the Nate Taylor and the Eric Eager and Curtis and Jed and Danny, these are all my guys in the room, and I value every opinion. And then you say, okay, now here's my opinion. They all have value, and I think that's what Eric Eager does, or excuse me, that's what Brett Veach does. Is he sits in that room and he's got all his lieutenants and he listens to all of them and he goes, okay, here's at the end of the day what I think. And I do value Eager, but I think the analytical side lives too much in the, every over-under for the most part, almost all of them are between 6 and 10 wins, right? Which is totally dependent upon schedule and injuries. And then there's a few elite teams and a few just crap teams that are at 11.5. Nowadays, I'm talking about the old 16-game seasons.
Right.
That'll go on up to, 11, 11.5, and then that are 5.5, 5, or 4. And those are just the outliers. But the reality is outliers are going to happen. And you've got to figure out how to be one of those outliers. And one of those that one of the that gets to the extremes. And I think you get to the extremes by maximizing the most important parts of the equation. And I do think that there's no doubt that Eric Fisher, when he's played, the Chiefs are significantly better. And even if this guy's 80% of Eric Fisher, that's better than Mike Remmers. We know that, right?
Right.
And it does seem like Andy Reid's formula is the quarterback and the left tackle. In Philadelphia, he always had both of those. In Kansas City, he's always had both of those. And he didn't have the left tackle, and he wasn't going to go. And listen, maybe, a left tackle will fall to them in this draft, and they'll play, let's say Penny Sewell falls to them in the second round. It's not going to happen. But if he did, fine. You play 1 year with Brown at left tackle and Sewell over at right, and then you wave goodbye to Brown because you're going to have a malcontent if you don't play him at left tackle. I'm certain that they are committing to him at left tackle. And then you move Penny Sewell over to the left side in year 2, and you move on, and you say, okay, we gave up a second-round pick to be a complete football team for 1 year. Fans would take that. And to your point about fans, everybody loves it. Fans know that left tackle was a need. They got a guy they heard of, so they're always going to think that's great. That's why fans are always interested in signing the 37-year-old that has nothing left in the tank because they've heard of him for 16 years.
Right, but this is a young football player who obviously is at least a good football player. And no matter who you draft, you're not certain they're a good football player because they haven't played in the National Football League yet. And so worst I could do is say A- on the deal, I think. And the minus is only the fact that Baltimore's a wise organization and the Chiefs are the team they have to beat, and they just filled the Chiefs' biggest need.
I'm with you. I do believe I would always trade within my division. Like that, you're not going to trade within the division. Yeah, because you're a coward. Like, if you know what you're doing, you're going to believe that you're going to get the better of it. If you know what you're doing, you should make tons of trades. Because you're like, hey, I'm going to win most trades 9-8, and if I lose them, I'm going to lose them 8-7, but I'm going to make 4 good trades for every 1 bad trade. So the more trades I make, the better my team will be. Like, that's the mindset I would have if I'm a general manager. So I wouldn't care who I was trading with. And maybe that's part of Baltimore's philosophy is they're confident in what they're doing. And they're saying that. I want to bring this up if you want a potential negative, Danny. Let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the 2018 draft. Why isn't this guy on this team right now? Right? I'll a cautionary tale there as to, what was it they didn't like about the guy, because we'll review who they did take in front of Orlando Brown. Danny Clinkscale's with us. He's brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing, commercial or residential roofing. Estimates are always free. No payments are collected until you're 100% satisfied. Call 913-257-5426. Find them online at eastonroofing.com.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing, and boy, we had to negotiate a million things in 2020, but Easton Roofing navigated them all. As 2021 rolls out, what should we expect this coming storm season?
Well, Danny, it'll be the same thing as it is every year. The storms come, and you've got the guys out knocking on doors, offering quote-unquote free inspections. Be wary as a homeowner. If somebody's knocking on your door, they probably need the work, and if they need the work that bad, they may be willing to do something untoward to get it. So if somebody knocks on your door, says they want to give you a free inspection, just tell them have a great day and give us a call. We'll come out for free and give you a good, honest opinion as to whether or not you need to do anything at all with your roof.
And what's the best way to get in touch with Easton Roofing?
You can always find us online at eastonroofing.com or give us a call at 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
All right, the good sense into the hour answer. Counting this trade, how many times have the Chiefs traded their first-round pick for a player?
All right. They moved a first for Montana.
Mm-hmm. Number 18 overall.
They moved. Alex Smith was 2 seconds. Matt Castle was a second. Who am I missing? There has to be another one. Was Willie Rofe? Willie Rofe was a first.
Mm-mm.
No?
Nope.
Wow, what a steal that was then.
One player on the current roster, not counting Orlando Brown.
They didn't technically give a first. Well, okay, so involved in a trade for a player.
Yeah, they sent this pick and or other picks to a team for a veteran player.
Okay. Danny, are you?
I'm not grinding gears on this one.
He was looking at just a couple years ago.
Frank Clark.
Yep, number 29 for
right.
Frank Clark in 19.
Yeah.
You got Trent Green and Joe Montana. The other two didn't go particularly well.
I didn't
for the
get
Chiefs.
Trent Green, by
I
the
thought
way.
you did.
No.
Sorry. Trent Green.
I tried Willie Rofe. Trent Green, Joe Montana.
Frank Clark. And then
Clark.
The other
and who?
two in the early 70s did not go as well for the Chiefs. In 1973, they gave up the number 17 overall pick to the Bears for a defensive tackle named George Seals, who started all of 2 games for Casey, then retired. And then 2 years later, they gave up the number 6 overall pick to the Houston Oilers for John Matusak.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Well, he ended up being good elsewhere.
Yeah, went to the right. Yeah, and so did the guy in that trade. The Chiefs also sent Curly Culp with that first-round pick. And Culp went on to be an All-Pro 3 times in Houston. Not a strong trade.
Trade sucked. That's why when Carl Peterson was hired, and Carl told this story many times, I'm sure he probably told it on Crunch Time the other night, that when he took the job, Lamar Hunt said, hey, you have total control of the football operation. I just want to know if you're going to trade the quarterback or if you're going to trade a first-round pick. Because he'd seen enough of that crap.
Yeah, the early 70s were not good. They spent a decade building the best team in the AFL history and then 5 years destroying it.
So was the answer 5 or was
6.
the answer all those names?
6.
6. It was a number 6.
Yeah, this was the number 6.
Very good. Good Sense, go to goodsensesubs.com. You can order online right there or the app, the easiest way. A couple of touches on my phone, and I can order the whole family. Got it saved. Got my order saved. Got just me and the missus saved since we both work from home. I can order that real quick. And then I got the family order saved. A couple of touches, and within 30 seconds I've ordered. And I get 10% back because I'm part of the loyalty club. The meats, the cheeses, slicing it fresh right in front of you. Now 30% more meat on your sandwiches. Check it out right now at goodsensesubs.com. Danny Clinkscale's with us, brought to you by Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. Easton Roofing. Danny, the 2018 draft, let's review. You're making a trade for Orlando Brown. I think you should always be reviewing what you did, why you did it. The Chiefs obviously think very highly of Orlando Brown. I do think that there's some – this is somewhat need-driven. They need an offensive tackle, so I do think that that's part of the equation as well. So not to say that, like, oh, they now think he's the best left tackle in football. No, I think they felt like Trent Williams was, and that's why they offered that first, right? They were in that to the very end first. Part of this is like they clearly think that they don't have a left tackle on their roster and they don't love what's going to be available for them. So here's how the draft went. They had no first-round pick because they had given the 18 first to the Buffalo Bills to trade up for Patrick Mahomes. Nobody's going to mind that. By the way, the Bills took Tremaine Edmonds. No, they didn't. That must have been their pick. Who would they have taken? They jockeyed
Bills
around.
moved that one to the Ravens, then to the Titans, who eventually took Rashawn Evans.
Yeah.
That pick got moved around like a
It got moved a couple times. The Bills moved it to the Bengals, I thought. Or they moved their own first to the Bengals.
Yeah.
They had 2 firsts, and one of them went to the Bengals to move up and eventually get Josh Allen.
Yeah.
What that was. But anyway, okay, so Rashawn Evans was the guy who ultimately went with that pick. I don't think anybody's complaining about how that happened. Do you remember what the Chiefs did, though, in the second round with their initial selection in 2018?
Was that Breland Speaks?
That was Breland Speaks. They trade up. I don't remember where they were. I guess if they would have been at
54.
22, it would have been –
according to
54.
This. Yeah.
So they moved up from 54 to 43. Or no, where is he? Where'd he go?
46.
46 to get Breland Speaks. And I think it's of note because then in the third round, again ahead of Orlando Brown, and this one Chiefs fans I think are much more okay with, the Chiefs took – why am I not finding him? There he is. Why do they call? Could somebody call Pro Football Reference and say it's KC? It's not KAN.
Yeah, it's annoying.
That is so annoying. Like you don't have to have 3 letters for everybody. Go KC. It's just stupid. Anyway, Derek Nottie at 75, and then Orlando Brown went in the third round at pick number 83. So, part of it was this to me shows the drafting by need part of the equation. They need a defensive lineman, so they're passing on Orlando Brown. And if you...
No, Soren, he was the best player on their board.
Breland Speaks was?
Both of them were.
Just use that just the terminology.
They weren't picking for need. Come on now.
If Derek Noddy... I mean, this is why, to me, and this is why it's important to go ahead. I'd rather not have the first-round pick and have Orlando Brown than not have Orlando Brown and have the first-round pick most of the time. I know we just kind of played that scenario. I would rather have Trent Williams, but there comes a price that it's just too much. Like, I'd like to have the free agent and my picks as opposed to the trade and not having my picks. That's why I would much rather, and particularly maybe the only two positions. Maybe there's three. I don't know. The Chiefs don't value it the same, but quarterback, left tackle, and a shutdown corner. Like, I want those three things. And I don't think the Chiefs have a shutdown corner, but they have a lot of good corners, so that's fine. But the Chiefs clearly value quarterback and left tackle, and I think it's worth overpaying for those two spots because they're absolute difference makers, and we saw that in the Super Bowl. So if you got a guy, they obviously didn't love Orlando Brown, and they clearly whiffed on Breland Speaks, which I give them great credit for cutting ties with him right away. Like, it didn't work. 2 years, you're out. You're done. We're not screwing around. We're not going to keep, trying to justify this bad pick. But they clearly were drafting for need. And that's what happens when you draft for need. You end up trading up for Breland Speaks. And so this time they're not going to do that because they took care of the need.
Right. So it seems like a real confluence of good circumstances came together for the Chiefs, and I'm sure there's a lot of pissed teams in the AFC.
Do you agree with me that we have now entered the era where everybody else in the AFC is going, why does my team keep making it easy for the Chiefs?
Well, I think we've entered that era, sort of, but since the Chiefs have won one Super Bowl so far, I don't think we're quite there. Now, if the Chiefs start,
hosted 3 conference championship games.
Oh, it's not like the Chiefs haven't done anything. I'm not saying that. But they haven't, like a lot of things, they haven't risen to the level of the Patriots in, that regard yet either.
All right, let's play this game. What is Glenn Clark going to say to me? What is Baltimore going to think about this trade?
I can't imagine that they're going to really like it, but they may think that the circumstances almost forced their hand.
Here's a note from Jeff Zrebiak, who writes...
By the way, Curtis, when you inhale that loud and that big, we know you want to talk.
Never get to say
so you don't have to pause to not step on someone's toes. You can just rock and fire.
My pause was that I was going to start talking. I was like, wait a minute, how do you pronounce that name? Z-R-E. I think it's Zrebiak, who writes for The Athletic, covers the Ravens, said, just tweeted out about recently here. Things had been quiet on the Brown Jr. front in recent weeks. Teams waiting until closer to the draft, not really coming in with offers. KC jumped in aggressively in the last 48 hours or so. Ravens wanted a first-round pick. Chiefs not willing to do first round straight up for Brown, so the deal was expanded.
That's what I was told, too, that they're like, we want a first, and Chiefs like, no. And so that meant that the Ravens didn't think they could hold out and get a first eventually on draft day. Like, they could have played this game to draft day all the way up until, pick 31 was on the clock. And said, okay, we have this locked and loaded. And if somebody did this to me, I'd do the same thing the Chiefs, I think, would do. Like, okay, here's the framework of the deal, but I want to see if I can get better. I'd be like, well, screw you, then the deal's off the table. Right? But they could have said, okay, there's your offer. We've got another offer. We're going to play this out. We're going to wait and see how the draft goes around because we've got some other teams that are involved. Like, I would have bluffed if I were Baltimore. Like, I wouldn't have pulled the trigger on this deal yet. I might have got burnt, but I would have bluffed and said I've got other offers. Right? I mean, anybody who's a fantasy player has to have played that game at some point. I mean, for the most part, I try to give my best offer first and then stand on it because I don't want to be used to get a better deal. But, like, I'll sit and hold and wait, and then then you got to decide it isn't getting better than this, which comes back to your point that, okay, if it's not getting better than this, then are the Chiefs the only one that's interested in this guy? But I was hearing that Baltimore wanted a first. The Chiefs said no, they'd take a second. They'd give him a second, and then all this other crap, all the other picks are just, finding the common ground between the two of them. So...
but the Chiefs did end up giving up a first. So
but got a second. So I don't consider that just giving up a first.
Just
No,
first.
I know it wasn't just a first, but
that's why I kind of bristle at Curtis's question. I get it. Ultimately, they moved to first, and a player was involved, but it wasn't first-round pick for a player. Like Joe Montana.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm just saying
was
that
a first for
Ravens
Montana
wanted
and Derek Whitmore.
Mm-hmm.
Ravens wanted a first-round pick. They ended up with one. How they got there? How they got there is obviously was how the deal got done.
I'm also hearing that the Chiefs are not enamored with this draft. They're where everybody else thinks this is such a great deep draft. That's not the opinion of the Chiefs. Now, if we see, 11 Hall of Famers in this draft class, and 5 of them come, from rounds 3 and later, then the Chiefs did not read this board right, if that's truly what they believe.
Well, I think they'd probably want to put that out, seeing as they don't have a whole lot of picks now. So, well, we don't have a lot of picks, but this is a stinky draft. So,
agree. But let's if that's let's at first say if that is wholeheartedly what they think, across the board, then okay, that we're going to be able to grade it.
Sure,
we'll know later whether or not they were right about this. What do you think give me the starting offensive line, left tackle to right tackle? I've got my theory. I've got two starting offensive lines.
Give me your theory, and then I'll probably just agree with it.
Okay, I'll take it. I'm going to go left tackle is Orlando Brown. Left guard is Joe Thuney. Austin Blythe starts at center. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif starts at right guard, and Kyle Long starts at right tackle. And Lucas Niang is the swing. By the way, have you seen the video of Lucas Niang doing the kick step on the left side and catching the tennis ball? I don't know why that went viral, but I'm not blown away by that. I don't know what I'm supposed to see. I'm not telling you I'm an NFL scout. I think I'm pretty good at assessing NFL talent. But, that wasn't a brick crap house I saw right there. Do you agree with that? You didn't go – Orlando Brown's going to get off the bus and you're going to go, oh, good Lord. Right. That's a football player.
Sure.
Right? Lucas Niang, I did not have that reaction. When I'm watching him, I'm like, So I don't think Niang's going to be the starter at right tackle. I think Kyle Long is. But if I'm wrong, and like I said, I've had another personnel guy in the league tell me they had him graded as a first-round pick, but they took him off the board because of his hip. But they said if we're wrong on the medical, which he said, it was a close call, but if we're wrong on the medical and he can go, he said, we think he can go initially, but they think it's a chronic condition and his hip's going to wear down and he's not going to have that long a career. He goes, but when he plays, he's a first-round talent. And so if that plays out and he wins the job at right tackle, then I think it will go Orlando Brown left tackle, Kyle Long left guard, Joe Thuney center, LDT right guard, and Lucas Niang right tackle. I think the battle is for right tackle, and if Kyle Long loses that battle, he goes to left guard, and Blythe becomes depth.
And Thuney plays center, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tooney's playing, so
Thuney's going to play,
yeah,
for sure. And when Andy Reid mentioned center, which I had heard before, and then I heard it, and then somebody did a Zoom. Was it somebody? Somebody was talking. Maybe it was just a guest, and they're like, "No, he's not playing center." Well, Andy Reid said he can play guard, he can play center, and he of course played left tackle at North Carolina State. But I don't think that's where he's going to go. There was some talk about that, so I think that's the battle. The battle is for right tackle between Niang and Long, and if Long loses it, he goes back to guard. Or if I'm wrong on that, Long plays right guard and LDT moves over to left guard. But that's what I think the O-line will be.
I can't disagree with that, but one thing I know is that the Chiefs have completely felt like they lost their prettiest girlfriend by watching the Super Bowl film, and now they've got 4 different girlfriends, and they can play them however they want. I mean, they were.
And you agree with their assessment, right? They needed a new girl. The old girl was psycho.
Yeah, they needed a new girl. They may have, in the end, overreacted, and there's more because before, what was the narrative about the Chiefs? They'll just sort of maul together an offensive line, and it always works, and then it didn't. one time, and there were a lot of injuries involved in that. And now they have a lot of resources tied up and spent a lot of money. And
Long's like when you dig down, like some of the numbers that were being reported were like, I think
the money they're paying for the free agent guys isn't much.
Well, Tooney's.
Yeah.
Tooney is.
But Long and Blythe, there's not a lot invested there.
Right. I'm just saying that they have really decided, prioritize this when before it was rather far down the priority list. Now, and the Super Bowl was played without even the guys that they had. So I think there's a slight overreaction here, but if they end up with a stout offensive line and it helps Patrick Mahomes, it's fine. I'm not mad at them. I'm just saying that before they felt like they can sort of patchwork these things. It did usually work, and then a big part of the reason it didn't work in the Super Bowl was injury.
Yeah, but they thought they could patch it together because they had the tackles nailed down. The patching was mostly done in between tackles.
That's true.
And they didn't have that option this year.
No.
Yeah, they always invested in the tackles, and I think that's clearly part of the formula, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right. Let's take a break.
It's a priority position in the National Football League now. Period.
Yeah, and I think we can see Andy Reid's. I'm going to have a quarterback and I'm going to have a left tackle. Like that's his formula. And I think it's a good one. I agree with it. And like I said, if a great left tackle, if they take a tackle in the 5th round and all of a sudden, like Bakhtiari didn't go high, right? He was a later pick.
Oh yeah,
and then
he was
all
in
of a sudden,
the 7th. He was the 7th or 8th tackle taken, I believe.
What round though?
I don't remember. I just saw a thing today that he was the 8th tackle pick that year.
He was in the 4th round in 2013.
Okay, yeah. So you don't go 4th round and go, we're getting a franchise left tackle.
No.
But if that would fall into the Chiefs' lap and they go, okay, Orlando, you're moving over to the right. No, I'm not playing right. No, we're paying you left tackle money. You're just going to play right. Then I think I can see that scenario playing out as well. But I do think that I think they're going to have their head on a swivel. I won't be shocked if they draft a tackle still with one of those 2 second-round picks with the idea of it'll tell you how much they think of Lucas Niang because it'll say that, okay, they're drafting the right tackle, and maybe some insurance over on the left side. Let's take a break. Danny Klinkskill's with us. He's brought to you by Easton Roofing. Danny, do you want to get into the Super League?
Sure.
Okay, good, because I know you were pissed when that came down. Danny Klinkskill, Danny Unleashed, here in the program.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing. And, Joe, there's all kinds of roofing companies in Kansas City. People see their trucks, they see their ads, they see their commercials on TV. What separates you out from the pack?
Danny, there's a lot of roofers in Kansas City that are good roofers that can put a good roof on, but we like to pride ourselves on giving you a good customer service experience. From the first time you call, you're going to get a friendly voice on the phone. We're going to let you know what's happening and when it's happening. And, the other piece is some companies are small enough to do small jobs. Some companies are big enough to do big jobs. We're right there in the middle. We can handle the little stuff. We can handle your repairs all the way up to your big commercial roofs.
So what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you at Easton Roofing?
You can find us at eastonroofing.com, or you can always call us at 913-257-5426. That's 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
You're in the program here on Sports Radio 810 WXB. If you're just getting in your car, the Chiefs have made a deal. Orlando Brown they get from the Baltimore Ravens, along with a 21 second-round pick and a 22 sixth-round pick. They give up the 21 first, third, fourth-round pick, and a 22 fifth-round pick. That is the breaking news today. Orlando Brown, he'll play left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Almost 6 feet 8 inches tall, 350 pounds. Orlando Brown, former Oklahoma Sooner, boomer for you Sooner fans out there. Danny, I know the Super League, when it came down and it fell apart, you hated it. I said on the air, I was still trying to get my arms around it. I knew everyone in Europe hated it, and I understood that. But I was trying to, read as much as I could because I'm not going to tell you like I've read everything I need to read. Well, not everything. I'm always reading about the NFL, but it's in my culture. It's been part of me. I'm new to the EPL, so I'd never proclaimed to be an expert on it. You've been following it longer than I have, and you hated it. And I thought it was interesting because I thought it was clearly the Americanization of European soccer. Can you agree with that? There were 3 or 4 of the owners that were Americans. Stan Kroenke, who owns
John
the Rams,
Henry.
Glazer, who owns the Bucks, and John Henry, who owns the Red Sox, were 3 of the owners, plus the Russian thug,
Right.
or not even, the guy who owns Chelsea, our club that we all root for. Me, you, and Jed, anyway.
I root for Arsenal.
You hated it. Who owns Arsenal?
It is another
Arsenal, I'm pulling
American.
it up.
Arsenal's
Arsenal's
Kroenke.
Kroenke.
Yeah, Kroenke owns Arsenal.
It's my team, I should know. But
Yeah.
I just
Glazer owns Man U.
I try to put Kroenke out of my mind. Well,
Glazer owns Man U, and John Henry owns Liverpool.
Right. Well, the reason I hated it is because it was anti-competitive. It was against everything that makes. For instance, I root for Arsenal. They're 9th right now, right smack in the middle of the league. But
I thought you were a Chelsea guy.
No, I'm an Arsenal fan.
Oh, okay.
So, so they need to get to 7th to play European football next year, the Europa League. It's bad for them, but they've played in Europe for like 24 consecutive years. So games that would ordinarily be completely meaningless at the top, in the middle, and the bottom of the table are interesting all the way to the end of the season. Right. And what they were going to have is just, first of all, you couldn't be relegated out of that league. They didn't have all the best teams anyway. They didn't have Bayern and PSG, and it was just brazen hubris. I mean, there were important executives on a couple of the teams that were in who didn't even know about it. The owners just went out and did it. And the fans hated it because of all those things. It had nothing to do with competition, and it had everything to do with just guaranteed money. And
would you agree with my assessment that it was the Americanization of?
Yeah, I think yes, absolutely. There was some absolute aspect to it, and it's probably part of the reason that it wasn't very popular. But yes, the National Football League, you can't be relegated out of there. But at least, and also, there's no you can't make an analogy to sports where there's not other competitions besides the league that you play in. And so the whole thing was just absolutely a mess. It didn't fit in any way, shape, or form with what soccer is all about all around the world.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying every American sport has to. Like, I was a guy that was bah humbug to soccer back in the day until I started taking the time to figure out what it is. But the relegation thing, I love
it's one of the coolest things in sports.
Oh, it's so great. It's so great. And I would encourage anybody to just pick a soccer team, an EPL team, and follow it. And it just, it eliminates tanking. It's the only thing that can eliminate tanking. You agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, positively. And it's fun, and, it almost can't be started in this country because it's a grassroots thing that's developed over years. But it's really a fun thing that creates interest right to the end of any season, top, bottom, middle of any standings.
Danny, you're the man. Thanks to our friends at Easton Roofing. Danny Klingscale. DannyKlingscale.com is where you can see his great work.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.